Okay, let's get right into it. You've probably seen the headlines about this group of countries called BRICS, but what is it really? And why does it suddenly seem to be everywhere? Well, we're going to break down the rise, the rivalries, and the really ambitious future of this powerful global bloc. To really wrap your head around the sheer weight of BRICS, let's just start with one massive number. The countries in this group now represent 45% of all the people on Earth. I mean, just think about that for a second. That's nearly 1 out of every 2 people on the entire planet. And, that kind of scale leads to the one big question that everybody is asking. It's a question that has leaders from Washington all the way to Beijing watching very, very closely, as this once economic club starts to look a lot more like a major geopolitical force. To understand all the recent buzz, we have to start with the most game-changing development, the group's sudden and really rapid expansion. This is what's dramatically increasing its global footprint. So what started back in 2009 as this club of 4 major emerging economies, well, it got its famous name in 2010 when South Africa joined, giving us that S in BRICS. And for more than a decade, that's how it was. But then, boom, the massive expansion of 2024 brought in huge players from the Middle East and Africa. And with Indonesia joining in 2025, the bloc is now making a serious push into Southeast Asia.
So where did this whole thing even come from? Well, the story doesn't start in some government building or at a fancy diplomatic summit. Nope. It starts on an investment bank's trading floor.
That's right. BRIC wasn't even a political idea at first. It was just a catchy name an economist at Goldman Sachs came up with to get investors excited about 4 fast-growing markets that looked really promising.
But here's the truly wild part. The guy who literally invented the term, he's now one of its biggest critics. He recently said that the countries just can't seem to get on the same page, basically calling the entire political project a failure.
Okay, so if the guy who created it thinks it's a flop, why is the black end gaining so much steam? Well, it's because the members have ambitions that go way beyond just economics. They actually want to reshape the way the world is run. So the core mission here is to create a multipolar world, one where power isn't just concentrated in one place. They're trying to reform institutions like the UN and the World Bank to give the global south a much stronger voice. A huge piece of this puzzle is what's called de-dollarization and building their own financial systems. And now, with the new oil-producing members, they control almost half of the world's crude oil. That's a big deal. And believe me, this isn't just talk. The new development bank is a perfect example. It's headquartered in Shanghai, not Washington, D.C., and it was created as a direct alternative to the World Bank and the IMF. The whole idea is to give developing nations another place to go for money for big projects, without all the strings that are sometimes attached by Western institutions. But for all of this ambition, the bloc is absolutely plagued by some major internal problems. And this leads to the big question that everyone's asking. Is BRICS a truly unified team, or is it just a collection of rivals who happen to have the same interests for a little while? I mean, on paper, their combined economic power is, wow, it's formidable. When you measure their economies using something called purchasing power parity, which basically just adjusts for what money can actually buy in different countries, the expanded BRICS bloc has already blown past the G7, the club of wealthy Western nations. But if you look a little closer, a very different picture starts to emerge. See, this isn't a partnership of equals, not even close. China's economy is just so massive that it makes up about 70% of the entire group's GDP. That creates this huge power imbalance that pretty much shapes every single decision the bloc makes. And this economic imbalance, well, it shines a spotlight on the deep cracks in the foundation. You have fierce geopolitical rivals like India and China in the same group, and they have active border disputes. At the same time, some of the key members are facing serious economic problems at home. So it's not really a surprise that for all the talk of cooperation, they barely trade with each other. It's a tiny, tiny fraction of their global total. So where does all this leave us? What is the ultimate destiny of this powerful, but, let's be honest, deeply fractured group? Here's a really crucial point that many of the members, especially democracies like India and Brazil, always insist on. The goal, they say, is to be a non-Western platform, not an anti-Western one. The idea is to have a space to pursue their own interests outside of those traditional Western-led power structures. So in the end, BRICS is really at a crossroads. It has the people, it has the resources, and it definitely has the raw ambition to change the global balance of power. But it's also being held back by these deep internal divisions and rivalries. The defining question for the next decade is going to be this: is their shared dream for a new world order stronger than the rivalries that are threatening to tear the whole thing apart?